The hearing wasn't supposed to be comedy. It was supposed to be measured, serious, another day of questions and answers. But as Senator John Kennedy pressed forward, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson didn't just answer. She laughed. Once, twice, 3 times, each louder than before. And when he tried a 4th time, the room didn't belong to him anymore. Kennedy froze. The gallery gasped, and the silence that followed was louder than any question. Stay with us, and don't forget to subscribe, because this is the exchange no one expected. The Senate hearing opened like countless others before it, solemn, procedural, the kind of event C-SPAN cameras catch in wide-angle shots that make history look like routine. The walls glowed under the overhead lights, flags draped precisely behind the dais, and aides moved briskly with stacks of folders. On paper, it was another day of questions and answers, but the atmosphere betrayed the script. Senator John Kennedy leaned back in his chair, glasses low on his nose, his trademark yellow pad perched in front of him. He tapped his pen slowly, the rhythm echoing his anticipation. His reputation preceded him, sharp with words, pointed with questions, always ready to corner his witness. Across the table sat Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, posture upright, hands folded neatly. She looked prepared, calm, but her eyes carried a spark, the kind of restrained fire that doesn't ignite until provoked. She had endured tough hearings before, but this one already felt different. The chairman cleared his throat, calling the chamber to order. Cameras adjusted their zoom. The press gallery hushed. Aides shuffled behind their senators, whispering reminders and sliding notes. Kennedy leaned toward the microphone first. His voice carried the slow, deliberate weight of someone who thought he already owned the room. Judge Jackson, I want to make this simple. People back home don't like complicated answers. They like it straight. So let's see if you can give us that today. A few chuckles from the gallery, not at humor, but at tone. The challenge was clear. Jackson nodded slightly, her lips curving in the faintest of smiles. Senator, I'll do my best. Though sometimes the law isn't simple, it's layered. Kennedy raised his brow, smirking. Layered is what people in Washington say when they don't want to answer. But don't worry, I've got time. The gallery stirred. Reporters' pens scratched quickly. A familiar pattern was forming. Kennedy pressing, Jackson steady. But what no one expected was the weapon Jackson would wield next. Not a binder, not a record, but laughter. Kennedy leaned forward, glasses sliding a little lower. Judge Jackson, let me ask you plain and simple. Do you believe criminals deserve more sympathy than their victims? The question dropped heavy, designed for headlines, not nuance. Reporters instantly perked up, scribbling. The gallery leaned forward, waiting for the clash. Jackson tilted her head, pausing. Then, instead of the tight, lawyerly rebuttal Kennedy seemed to expect, she chuckled softly. A light, genuine laugh that rippled through the microphone. The room shifted. The laugh wasn't dismissive. It wasn't mocking. It was disarming, as if she found the framing almost absurd. Kennedy frowned, caught off guard. Well, I don't see what's funny about that, Judge. Jackson's smile remained steady. Senator, I laugh only because the question paints a picture that doesn't exist in my courtroom. Sympathy doesn't guide my decisions. The law does. And when the law requires accountability, that's what I deliver. Gasps moved through the gallery. Some even chuckled along with fear. Reporters scribbled harder now. Jackson laughs, flips tone. Kennedy shifted in his seat, clearing his throat. So you're saying criminals don't get sympathy from you. Is that your final word? Jackson leaned in slightly, her tone steady but her eyes still carrying humor. Senator, I don't hand out sympathy. I hand out sentences. The room broke into murmurs, a few muffled laughs escaping from the gallery. Kennedy's pen tapped against his yellow pad, sharper now, frustration creeping in. He pressed again. That's twice you've dodged my question. I'll ask it a 3rd time. Victims or criminals? Who gets your compassion? Jackson laughed again, this time a little louder, shaking her head as if amused by the repetition. Senator, you can ask me 3 times, but the answer will be the same. My compassion belongs to the Constitution. The gallery gasped louder now. a blend of admiration and surprise. Reporters looked at one another with wide eyes. One whispered, "She's laughing him off." "And it's working?" Kennedy stiffened, the rhythm broken. His method of cornering wasn't landing. Instead, her laughter was puncturing the tension and stealing the room. Kennedy straightened in his chair, clearly irritated by how easily Jackson had brushed aside his framing. He flipped a page on his yellow pad, tapping it sharply with his pen. "Judge Jackson, I've reviewed cases under your jurisdiction. In multiple sentencing decisions, you gave lower terms than the prosecution requested. That's not law, that's leniency, and the American people deserve to know why." Gasps rippled through the gallery. Aides leaned forward, whispering to their senators. Reporters scribbled furiously, ready to frame Kennedy's claim as his big strike. Jackson lifted her eyebrows slightly, and then, to the surprise of everyone, she laughed again. Louder this time, warm but incredulous, as though she couldn't believe the simplicity of his attack. The room stirred. A journalist whispered, "That's the third time now. He keeps pressing, and she keeps laughing." Jackson leaned toward her mic, her voice steady, still edged with amusement. "Senator, sentencing is not a math problem where prosecutors always get the answer key. The law requires judges to weigh evidence, precedent, and proportionality. If following the Constitution is leniency, then I suppose we'll have to redefine the dictionary." The gallery broke into murmurs, some even chuckling softly with her. Kennedy frowned, flipping another page. "So you're saying every one of those lighter sentences was perfectly justified?" "Because I've got records right here." He held up a printed case summary, the paper shaking slightly in his hand. "You went below the guidelines more than once. That's not coincidence, Judge. That's a pattern." Jackson's eyes sharpened, but her lips curled in a smile. She leaned forward. "Senator, the only pattern here is that you keep holding up paper while I hold up the law." The laughter that followed wasn't just hers this time. It spread through the gallery. Some reporters stifled their chuckles. Others scribbled the line verbatim. Pattern, paper versus law. Kennedy's jaw tightened. His pen tapped angrily against the pad. He tried again, his tone harsher. "This isn't a joke, Judge. The American people don't find this funny." Jackson's laughter, softer now, slipped through once more. "Neither do I, Senator. That's why I take my oath seriously, even when the questions don't." The silence that followed was electric. Kennedy's shoulders stiffened. His paper, once meant to corner her, now looked flimsy compared to her calm, unshaken delivery. By now, the senators, staffers, and reporters in the chamber could feel it. Kennedy's usual rhythm wasn't landing. His questions, designed to box in, were instead opening space for Jackson's composure to shine. And every time she laughed, it wasn't careless. It was controlled, deliberate, and it stripped the tension from his punches. Kennedy leaned in again, this time his tone sharper, more clipped. "Judge Jackson, are you telling this chamber that you've never once let personal sympathy guide your decisions?" "Not once." Jackson tilted her head slightly. She gave a soft laugh, the fourth, and this time the gallery erupted. The sound wasn't ridicule, it was release. Her laughter felt like a reminder that the question itself was absurd. She leaned toward the mic, her voice steady but edged with quiet humor. "Senator, sympathy doesn't sentence anyone. Statutes do. The moment I let feelings guide my rulings is the moment I break my oath. And I have never broken it." The room buzzed with murmurs of approval. Reporters underlined the phrase, "Sympathy doesn't sentence. Statutes do." A CNN correspondent whispered, "That's the line." Kennedy's face flushed slightly. He straightened his yellow pad, shuffling pages as if trying to regroup. He jabbed at the mic again. "So all those families who saw criminals walk away with lighter sentences, you're saying they should trust your judgment over their pain?" Jackson didn't blink. She gave another restrained smile, her tone colder now. "I'm saying families should trust the Constitution. And if this chamber wants judges to hand out sentences based on emotion rather than law, then we'll have to change the very foundation of justice." Gasps filled the chamber. The gallery leaned back, visibly impressed. Even a few senators who had sat stone-faced began to nod slightly, their expressions betraying respect. Kennedy paused, caught between pressing harder or retreating. His pen tapped loudly against the desk. The silence stretched, broken only by whispers from the gallery. She's dismantling him. A reporter muttered into his recorder, "Fourth laugh." He's cornered now. Kennedy finally leaned back, arms crossed, expression tightening. For the first time, he looked less like the prosecutor and more like the defendant. Before the gavel could call recess, the first phone video was already airborne. 46 seconds. A tight crop of Kennedy leaning in, voice pressing, followed by Judge Jackson's fourth soft laugh. And then the line that landed like a verdict. Sympathy doesn't sentence. Statutes do. The tweet's caption read, "She laughed, then she taught." In 12 minutes, it cleared 500,000 views. On TikTok, creators stitched the moment into perfect symmetry. Kennedy's stack of papers on the left, Jackson's calm smile on the right. Some slowed the audio, letting the laugh ring a fraction longer before the words. Others layered courtroom gavel sounds that hit on the beat of statutes do. Hashtags rose. Number 4 laughs. Number statutes do. Number hearing lesson. Comments exploded. Textbook composure. He brought volume, she brought law. Instagram Reels turned it into a call and response meme. Frame 1, Ethan Kennedy, captioned, "Feeling greater than facts." Frame 2, Jackson, captioned, "Facts greater than feelings." Another popular cut split her 4 laughs like mile markers. 1, 2, 3, and then the line, with on-screen text, "This is where the room turned." Cable news didn't wait for prime time. MSNBC, Chiron, Jackson rebukes with law, not heat. CNN's lower third, sympathy doesn't sentence moment goes viral. Even conservative panels, while criticizing her tone, replayed the clip because the audience demanded it. One host conceded, optics matter, and she owned the optics. Podcasts dropped emergency mini-episodes titled like headlines, 4 laughs and a lesson. Paper versus precedent, the composure playbook. Talk radio lines lit up with callers who disagreed on policy but agreed on presence. A retired public defender said flatly, "That's how you teach a courtroom what the oath means." A victim advocate added, "I want firmness." And she sounded firm. Students clipped it for group chats. Law professors shared it before class, asking first-year students to identify the doctrinal backbone in her phrasing. Discretion, guidelines, proportionality, oath. One professor's post read, "Note the structure, reframe arrow, reduce heat, arrows rest on authority, arrow close on oath." It racked up thousands of likes. Inside the Capitol, staffers clustered around screens, volume low, captions on. An aide whispered, "He's the question. She's the answer." Another, more cynical, grimaced. "This is the only 60 seconds anyone will remember." In the press bullpen, a producer circled 3 words on a rundown. Laugh line silence. That was the segment. Meanwhile, another angle surfaced. A clean committee feed with crystal audio. It showed the micro beats that the shaky clip missed. The half-second smile before her laugh. The way Kennedy's pen stalled mid-tap. The quick glance between 2 senators when the gallery murmured. That version became the newsroom favorite, and anchors could pause on frames, annotate reactions, slow roll the momentum shift. Late-night monologues landed within hours. One host quipped, "Kennedy asked for yes or no. She gave him A, B, C, and Article 3. The punchline hit, but the replay that followed drew applause without jokes. The room had watched a style mismatch resolve itself. Not with a zinger, but with discipline. And still, Jackson didn't tweet, didn't thread, didn't drop a quote graphic. The absence itself read like strategy. The clip spoke, her silence made it louder. By evening, the narrative had condensed to a single sentence most viewers could recite. Sympathy doesn't sentence. Statutes do, the rest of the hearing blurred. The 4th laugh and that line were the story. Back in the marble halls, the soundscape changed. Staffers who'd greeted Kennedy with friendly nods kept their eyes on their phones. Reporters who'd pre-written tough on crime clash retitled their pieces around judicial oath and composure. Even a skeptical columnist admitted in a thread, "You don't have to like the rulings to respect the clinic on courtroom temperament." And in the gallery, a quiet consensus formed among people who rarely agreed. Whatever you thought this exchange would be, it became something else. A civics lesson with a laugh track. The questions had ended. The faces carried the answer. When the senators filed back in after recess, the hearing didn't feel the same. It wasn't just procedure anymore. It was aftermath. Everyone had seen the clip. Some replayed it on their phones in the hallways, whispering to colleagues, 4 laughs. Did you hear that line? By the time the gavel called the room back to order, the verdict was already written on people's expressions. Reporters who once filled their pads with long, detailed notes now wrote in fragments, 4th laugh, statutes due, Kennedy silent. Photographers stopped chasing stacks of paper and instead aimed their lenses at body language. Kennedy's jaw tight, his pen tapping nervously again. Jackson sitting still, her posture calm, her face untouched by strain. On the dais, senators wore their verdicts in small tells. A Democrat who had been stone-faced earlier now leaned back in his chair, arms folded with a faint, knowing smile. Even a Republican ally shifted uncomfortably, tugging at his collar when the chairman recognized Kennedy again. They knew the rhythm was gone. The gallery wasn't quiet either. Whispers carried. She laughed him off. He looked stuck. One law student whispered to her professor, "That's what composure looks like, isn't it?" The professor nodded without hesitation. Kennedy tried to reassert himself, leaning toward his mic, voice harder. "Judge Jackson, the American people don't want judges who laugh at serious questions. They want judges who respect the gravity of justice." It was strong, defiant, but the delivery felt off. The optics weren't in his favor anymore. Jackson didn't raise her voice. She didn't lean in dramatically. She simply adjusted her glasses and spoke softly. "Senator, I respect justice so much that I refuse to treat it like a soundbite." The chamber stirred, gasps, murmurs, a few scattered nods. Reporters underlined the line immediately. "Refuse to treat it like a soundbite." Kennedy sat back, his jaw tightening. For once, he didn't have a quick retort. His pen stopped tapping. His yellow pad remained blank in front of him. The silence stretched, and in that silence, the faces in the chamber told the story. The staffers avoiding eye contact, the senators shifting in their seats, the gallery staring not at Kennedy but at Jackson, as though the center of gravity had permanently shifted. A journalist whispered, "He's done." She didn't just answer him. She ended the rhythm. The last word wasn't loud. It was final. The chairman cleared his throat, giving each side the chance to close. Kennedy shuffled his yellow pad, but the chamber already knew the story, the line, the laughter, and the silence that followed. His pen hovered, but no words came. Jackson adjusted her microphone slowly, her voice calm and deliberate. "Senator Kennedy, I take my oath seriously. I have never sentenced with sympathy. I have sentenced with law, and that is why justice remains stronger than any question." The room froze. No scribbles, no whispers, just silence. Reporters exchanged glances. They didn't need more notes. They had the closer. Kennedy leaned back in his chair, lips pressed thin, unable to break the silence with a reply. His shoulders slumped slightly, as if even he realized the moment was sealed. The chairman struck the gavel. "The committee stands adjourned." But the gavel wasn't the end. It was punctuation. The real ending had already landed. Jackson gathered her notes slowly, rose from her chair, and walked out with composure untouched. Cameras stayed fixed on Kennedy's face, still frozen, still wordless. Reporters didn't chase her with questions. They didn't need to. The story wasn't about what she would say next. The story was that she had said enough. Was Judge Jackson right to laugh her way through Kennedy's questions? Or did she cross a line? Tell me in the comments below. Don't forget to hit subscribe because the next clash will shake the chamber even louder.